Howdy, and welcome to Sapphire Ridge News. Give people a few seconds to pile in here, and then we'll talk about our topic for the day. Our topic for today is Tulsi is cleaning house at the DNI. She has outright fired two individuals and referred them to the DOJ, and she has referred 11 others and said more is coming. This is a great thing. You know, all these Biden holdovers really need to be cleaned out. They're causing such problems. Like this channel, we talked about the Abrego Garcia um, case. It was a Biden holdover attorney that put in the court record that he was mistakenly deported. That is not true. That is completely false. He had an existing order of deportation from 2019. He had a holdover order. You can only get a holdover order if you have been issued a final deportation order. And the holdover order was that he could not be returned to his home country of El Salvador because he was in MS-13, which nobody wants to talk about, and that the rival gang there had basically a hit out on him. The new president, Bukele, has eliminated the rival gang, so that no longer applies. He can't say the Barrios 16, I think it was, gang has a hit out on me because that gang no longer exists. And the second thing is when MS-13 was named a international terror organization, then the holding order doesn't apply. There's should have been an immediate deportation because once you're named a international terrorist organization, none of your members can be in the United States. They are all immediately deported. Everybody keeps skipping over that. They try to say, oh, he's a Maryland man, a good father. No, he's not. There's an existing order of protection by his wife in the court against him because he routinely beat her. This is not acceptable. It's not okay for us to say that he's a good man and all this other bullshit when he has an existing order of protection by his wife. So that's that. We're not talking about that today. We're talking about Tulsi cleaning house at the DNI. And the DOJ lawyer that put that nonsense in the Abrego case has been fired because she misstated the facts to the court. So she was fired. Well, they didn't say fired. They said she was removed from her position, which to me means fired, but she might have been transferred to Timbuktu somewhere. Who knows? But Tulsi, I've always liked Tulsi. I've always said that she's a strong patriot. Even though she was a Democrat for decades, she's still a patriot. She loves this country. She was in the Air National Guard. It was her job as an Air National Guard pilot to rescue down soldiers. And she would fly in, the medic team would run out and grab them, and she'd get them out of there. Hey, Julianne. I was just going on a rant. Tulsi is cleaning house. She fired two individuals and referred them to the DOJ for prosecuting for leaking classified information. She has referred 11 others to the DOJ for prosecution, and she said more is coming. And I was talking a bit about the Abrego Garcia case and the nonsense that was going on there, and that, well, we've talked about that many times. But what I don't think we talked about is the lawyer that put the phrase, he was mistakenly deported, in the court record. The Biden holdover. And as per Stephen Miller, he said she has been removed from her position, which I take means that she was fired. And also with the Abrego Garcia case, all these idiots are saying that we sent him to CCOT. We did not. He had an existing order of deportation. We deported him to the airport in El Salvador. The El Salvadoran government picked him up outside of the airport where he was conducting gang activity. That's why he's in jail in El Salvador, because he was conducting gang activity in El Salvador. We do not have any jurisdiction to tell the El Salvadorian government what to do with their own citizens when their own citizen is breaking their law. That just gets me going, because we have these tyrannical judges issuing these nationwide injunctions against everything under the friggin' sun. They talked about it at the Supreme Court today. And even Kagan and Jackson told the lawyer for the states that are bringing this matter that none of her arguments make sense. And I said, when you lost Kagan and Jackson, you're screwed, right? Am I right? Because Sotomayor, she's off in Looney Tunesville, my opinion. Yeah, because now ABC News, the ones who started this whole Maryland man nonsense, did a piece Saturday, in which they said Abrego Garcia is an El Salvadorian citizen who is who was arrested by the El Salvadorian government. And it's like, yeah, because he was committing crimes in his home country after he got off the plane. See, I've talked to JR about this, and where he is misinformed, I'll put it that way. Hold on, I got to take this. This. There. I didn't know if you heard me from the beginning or not. Um, yeah, I had no sound because I had to answer an important phone call. Um, this is this whole thing, with Tulsi cleaning house and how it connects to the Abrego Garcia case, and the fact that the lawyer that put the phrase in the court record that Abrego Garcia was mistakenly deported was a Biden holdover. All the Biden holdovers should be gone. This is a new president. That's just the way I look at it. Am I right? And all the lies that were spread about the Abrego Garcia case, you know, me and JR had words over that because he had been mistaken, or not mistaken, misinformed about that whole situation. And where I had words with him was I sent him 4 separate YouTube channels that stated the opposite of what he was saying. Even Megyn Kelly. I sent him the video from Megyn Kelly saying that he was MS 13, that he was judged MS-13 by 2 immigration judges. He was given a final order of deportation in 2019. The holdover order, you can only get a holdover order if you have had a final order of deportation. The holdover order only meant that he could not be deported to El Salvador because his rival gang had put a hit out on him. Well, Bukele, who's the current president, eliminated the rival gang. So that situation no longer applies. So that means the holdover order is null and void. And where JR gets caught up is he thinks that he wasn't offered due process like a court case. He doesn't get a court case. He gets an immigration court case, which he had. And people get conflated saying, well, he has constitutional rights. I'm sorry, no, he doesn't. He's not a citizen. Constitutional rights are for citizens. Yeah, that never happened. He did not give them all amnesty. That never happened. And they're looking at many of the Biden pardons as being illegal. They're being investigated because one of the things when a president issues a pardon, the president has to be present. The auto pen can be used, but the president has to be present when the pardon is signed. Yes, you're right, Zach. And that happened in 2019. That's where this is getting all conflated. Because in 2019, 2 immigration judges, an immigration judge and an immigration appellate judge, issued a final order of deportation. So he had the due process that he was afforded. They verified his identification. The immigration judge said he's a member of MS-13. He does not deny it. All these people that saying, well, I don't think he's a member. He admits to being a member. That should be enough, right? When you are a member of a gang and your rival gang in your home country puts a hit on you and you say that's why you left because they put a hit on you, that means you're a member of that gang, am I right? I just get really wound up at these people that are so misinformed. So, how do you guys like me putting the chat box on the screen? Do you guys like that? I found out last night when I was setting this up that I could do that. So I said, well, let's see how this rolls. And I'm working on that stream share. I got a message back this morning from support that I have to read and I have to work on later on. They said, go to the channel that you want to share, copy the channel live stream code, and put it in that app. I'm calling it an app. They call it a widget, but I call it an app. And then click on the one button, and they said it will generate a stream key, and then from there I can just project it onto the screen and we can watch. We'll see if that works. Um, Due process is also applicable in um, immigration proceedings because immigration warrants do get issued. And in order for an immigration warrant to be issued, you have to have a process to lead up to that. Follow what I mean? And I agree. I always like channels that show the chat on the screen, and I was looking for a way to do that, and I found this thing called Chat Box. So I thought, we'll see how this goes. And I could probably, let me see something here, if this helps. That's not what I'm wanting to do. Where's that? Right there. No. I'll figure it out later. Because there's a way for me to do our little screen as full screen. You fell asleep, Julianne? I don't see how. Right. And they had no crime. And from the way I now understand pardons, is a pardon can only be issued after the crime has been adjudicated, which means they've gone to trial, they've been found guilty, and been sentenced. That's the way I understand that. Or they're sitting in jail, etc. Oh, cool. So do I understand that right? That a pardon can only be issued after it's been to court. And another thing that General Flynn brought out about Milley, he said Milley committed treason. There is no pardon for treason. He said you cannot be pardoned for committing a treasonous act. Yeah, it's Ed Martin. Ed Martin is the new pardon lawyer in the DOJ. The guy that the Republicans didn't want as the U.S. attorney in D.C. because he supported the pardons of the J6ers. Yeah, he's the new pardon attorney. You know, karma is something, ain't it? Yeah, Tillis didn't want him. And Tillis was the 50th vote. They couldn't get 51. Without Tillis, they had 49 votes, so his he could never get passed. And what I think is laughable and hysterical is the second that Judge Janine got named, Tillis said, "Oh, I'll vote for her." And I thought, Judge Janine was a more staunch supporter of the J6 pardons than Ed Martin. Yeah. When they said he was a new pardon attorney, I said, yep. Stick that in your pipe and smoke it, right? Yeah. I watched her argue with Jessica Tarlov and tell her, I don't want to hear your bullshit. Well, she would say BS, but that's what she meant. And I thought, these people don't have a clue what's coming at them, right? Yes, I saw that this morning that we took control of Rikers Island. Rikers Island is a hellhole that needs to be cleaned up. And the fact that ICE commandeered Rikers Island speaks volumes. And I'm still wondering how ICE was able to commandeer Rikers Island. Rikers Island is a New York state jail in New York City. It's rated as one of the worst jails in the entire country. The conditions there are just horrible. No, I haven't heard that. I watched the Supreme Court case this morning, which I'm going to talk about tomorrow. Um, it's about all these temporary restraining orders. They lost Kagan and they lost Jackson. When you lose Kagan and Jackson, you're screwed as a liberal, right? Kagan told the liberal attorney, none of your arguments make sense. I thought, you're in deep doo doo when Kagan tells the liberal attorney, none of your arguments make sense, right? I watched it on Robert Govea's channel. And, you know, um, Todd Sauer was the attorney for the DOJ. And once again, he made absolute sense of the TROs and said that a judge in the state of Washington should have control over their district, not the entire country, which I 100% agree with that. Yeah, the Paralegal Institute of DC, I think it's of Washington, D.C., but I always say D.C., is doing a stream this afternoon about new allegations against Tish James that just come out today. This is stuff that's brand new, that's never been talked about before. Other types of fraud that she's committed. And I said, holy cow, right? Other types of fraud. Judge Deneen was just sworn in as the interim U.S. Attorney for D.C. Oh, wow. I didn't know that her dad passed away. Yeah. DC's got a wrecking ball coming at him called Judge Janine, right? I didn't know he died in the 80s. Because that's one thing. Judge Janine is 71, and she knows the law like the back of her hand. I want, I would like to see court cases get cameras in the court. It's my opinion that every court in the entire country should have cameras in the court. There should not be this ban on cameras in federal courts. The more you shine light on the subject, the more clarity you have, the more transparency you have. Because if there's cameras watching what everything every judge does, a lot of this nonsense will go away. Yeah, I agree with that, Zach. She probably did not expect him to die, and so did not expect her fraud, or I call it grift, to get exposed. And her attorney for the Virginia case is laughable. He said that she signed papers before closing stating that it was going to be a secondary residence. But at closing, she signed that this was going to be her primary residence. The papers she signed at closing take precedent. Anything she signed before that is void once you sign the papers at closing. Is that understandable? How that what you sign, because I've bought and sold property in the past. Yes, she rented the house to her niece. Her niece still lives there. Yeah, because New York is currently, her office is paying her legal fees, which is another fraud upon the court. She's supposed to pay these type of legal fees out of her own pocket. Yeah, she owns a house in Brooklyn and she bought a house in Virginia. The house in Virginia is where the big stink is because on the papers at closing, she signed that was going to be her primary residence. And she then rented the house to her niece, who was the co-buyer. And she's in trouble over her house in Brooklyn because it's a 5 flat. She reported it as a 4 flat. She avoided paying huge fees and interest because a 5 flat is considered a commercial building. A 4 flat can be a private residence. That I had not heard about, the house left vacant for 13 years. But the house in Brooklyn is actually a apartment flat, like a flat of condos, and there's 5 units. The and what takes precedent is what's called I think it's called the domicile report. The domicile report says it's a 5 unit building. The occupancy report, well, it's like an occupancy permit, says that it's a 5 unit building. It said that when she bought it. For all these years, she's been declaring it a 4 unit without doing any construction to eliminate the 5th unit. It's not homestead because it's in the middle of a city. She's in a lot of trouble over this. Um, Sam Antar has been doing great reporting on this. He's a forensic accountant and a Democrat, and he is roasting her over this. He said, "This is not about politics. This is about you broke the law and you're continuing to break the law and trying to get away with it." Said, "You tried to put me in jail for doing this, and I went to jail, did my time, and I reformed, and now it's your turn." I thought, ooh, burn, right? Because it's not okay for you to want to put someone in jail for this for the same thing that you yourself are doing. Am I right? And Jim Jordan was great yesterday. He said, "Okay, let me see." He said her um, fine for committing mortgage fraud should be at least $300 million because she wanted to exact $400 million from President Trump for mortgage fraud, which wasn't fraud, which the bank said they were not defrauded. He said only the corrupt judge and Letitia James thought it was fraud. Yeah, millions of dollars. I did a whole thing about the corruption of John Roberts. Go back and look at that stream. Talk about corruption. Supreme Court justices get about $200,000 a year. John Roberts is worth $16.9 million. How do you get that rich off of $200,000 a year? Rich Eisen has said that him and John Roberts go to Europe for 3 to 4 weeks at a time, and that they talk about ways to prevent the Obamacare legacy from dying. And now, because of all of this, John Roberts is talking about retiring at the end of the term. It would be a great thing, right? Well, I got to get off of here. I will see you guys later. Talk to you soon. Bye for now.